Hi, I'm Marcus Coward, and this is Wake Up New Bedford. I'm here with Brandan Burke, a real estate agent with Amaral and Associates Real Estate. And thank you again for coming. Join me for part two.
Thank you.
And so, if everyone was able to watch part one, we were talking primarily about buying homes and the home buying process. But in this part, we should talk about how to sell a home. And also, later on, we'll talk about how to invest in real estate and some of your stories on the best moments on being a real estate agent with your clients, and maybe we can talk about some pitfalls that clients can avoid. But first, talk to us about how to sell your home, if you're ready to.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you once again for having me here.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. So to sell a home, right, to get ready, first things first is figuring out where you're going to move to. Right?
Okay.
That's a huge thing.
I mean, of course, it sounds so simple, but
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're so right.
You're not going to, God willing, you're not going to be homeless after you sell.
Exactly.
Right? So are you going to move into an apartment? Are you downsizing into a smaller house because you're an empty nester now? Right? Do you want a bigger house? Like, are you outgrowing the house? Are you having kids and stuff like that? Right? Kind of finding out, like, you're going to know your motivation already naturally, but you want to have an idea of, like, where you're going to move to next, right?
Yeah.
Because that's going to help your agent be able to guide you on what to do, right? So, like, if you're moving into another house and you need to sell this house in order to afford the other house, then that's going to affect the contingencies that we have in your contracts.
Sure.
Right? If you're buying another house and you're selling your first house and it's dependent upon selling it, then you're going to want a contingency in there saying that it's subject to you finding suitable housing, so that you're not being forced out of the home that you're in.
Sure.
Because you don't want to be homeless.
Yeah.
So that's rule number one. Rule number two is you want to make sure that your house is show ready, meaning that when I bring clients in there, or another agent brings clients in there, that they're able to walk through the home seamlessly.
Yeah.
They don't have too many obstacles.
Sure.
They don't have an aroma that's not pleasing.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to be presentable.
Presentable, exactly. Not too many animals running around and stuff
Sure.
like that, right? So you want to make sure it's ready and tidy. And I understand that, that can look a lot of different ways.
Sure.
Depending on the situation and the motivation and the financial standing of the client. So I work with people on that. If they have some space in the basement where they can stuff some extra clutter, we'll do that, because a lot of people understand that, like, the basement is often used as a storage area.
Sure.
So, like, just to make, like, the main section of the home look presentable, we'll do something like that, or we'll move stuff to storage, whatever we got to do to make it presentable. But it is very key to make your home as presentable as possible, because it's an emotional game. Right? People that are walking through there, they want to be able to see themselves in that home, and it's hard to do if it's too cluttered with personal items of the seller.
So, question, we were talking about the inside, but about the exterior, would you recommend, like, let's say it's like, you'd give the exterior maybe like a B to a B minus, like, as far as for the roofing, the outside, like, it could use a paint job and maybe some touch-ups. Would you recommend the seller to take care of that beforehand, so maybe they can improve the value, or would you just leave that for the buyer to deal with?
It's a case-to-case basis, and it really depends on what is needed, right? Like, for instance, if there's chipping paint on the outside, and you want to make sure that your home is, or the purchasing of that home is accessible to the most amount of buyers, then you would want to, like, paint over that,
Sure.
or do a whole new paint job, because that's something that the FHA loan that we were talking about previously doesn't really accept.
Okay.
They don't like chip and paint. They don't
Sure.
like missing railings, anything safety related.
Sure.
They don't like, so that's something that I usually advise my clients. But again, like, it's a case-by-case basis, because not all clients have the means to do certain things. So I just tell them, do what you can.
Okay. But there are going to be some requirements that you will have to meet in order to sell your house.
Depending on the financing, and depending on the type of house,
Sure.
right? If it's a house that's going to be a flip property that only investors are going to be really interested in, then you don't have to do as much. And in some cases, you don't even have to remove the items from the home. But if it's somebody that's getting, conventional financing, FHA financing, it needs to be safe and livable. And the majority of your personal items, unless it was agreed upon for it to stay, need to be out. So the term that they use is broom clean, and broom swept.
Sure.
So basically, it needs to be all the personal property that wasn't agreed upon to stay needs to be out of the home. As far as the exterior goes, the roof. I mean, if it's leaking,
Sure. Yeah.
you want to address that
For sure,
right?
yeah.
Not only because you're selling the house, but because you don't want mold, you don't want
Yep.
spots on the ceiling and stuff like that. So you want to address that. And then as far as like the curb appeal goes, that matters. Like when someone pulls up in front of your house, you want it to look presentable.
Yeah.
You don't want extremely long grass. If you have flowers and stuff, that's nice. Not required, but that's nice.
Yeah.
Just cleaned up. If you have leaves everywhere, you might want to rake those up. That type of thing. Just make it presentable. It doesn't have to be perfect, like HGTV or anything like that.
But everything matters.
Yeah,
Everything is taken into account.
Appearance matters because when they come, that's what they're going to see. What they see is important.
And so, before we get into investing, or is there anything else you want to talk about as far as for the process of selling the house?
Yeah. So the process of selling the house. So, yeah. Sorry, we said number 2 was to tidy it up. Okay. Then the third step would be us signing our contract.
Sure.
And then the photos. So
Okay.
More times than not, again, this is specific to every case,
Yeah.
but most of the time I'm going to hire a professional photographer to come in
Okay.
and do the pictures.
Sure.
Right? Because again, we're agents. We're really good at selling properties and marketing them.
Sure.
But we want to have a professional photographer, someone that does that every day,
Yeah.
to come in, take professional pictures, get the right angles, recommend moving furniture, opening up the curtains to let the natural light in, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
We want them taking the pictures and then editing them. Sometimes what my photographer will do is if there's too much clutter, he'll actually have things digitally removed.
Oh,
so
that's
it kind
interesting.
of looks like it doesn't look, that's not there,
Sure.
and like it just makes it look more open and inviting. So I'll bring the photographer in, and then once the photographer sends me the pictures, I'll put it up on my MLS system. The MLS system. This is something good to talk about too.
Sure.
So a lot of people think that when they work with an agent, right, they're getting exclusive access to properties, and sometimes they do because of relationships with other agents and other investors. They may have something, but most of the time, the same thing that you're seeing on Zillow is what we're posting, because how the MLS works is you post your listing up on Zillow, in MLS, and then it syndicates out to Realtor.com, Zillow,
Sure.
Redfin, stuff like that. So that's something to clear up. But that's not me saying that you shouldn't work with an agent, because an agent is going to have a lot of knowledge on the topic and is a good resource for you. You should 100% use an agent as much as you can. But just to clarify that, the stuff that you're seeing on Realtor.com and Zillow is what we're also seeing.
Okay.
So we put it up on MLS, and then what I usually do, and every agent's different, is I like to post the listing at the beginning of the week on like a Sunday or a Monday.
Okay.
That gives the audience out there enough time to see the house, ask questions, figure out if they want to go see it or not, share it with other people, right? It builds the buzz,
Sure.
right? And then that weekend, first weekend, put it on up for open house.
Okay.
Market the open house.
Sure.
I'll market the open house at the beginning of the week,
Yep.
and then we'll have the open house on either Saturday or Sunday, or sometimes both.
Okay.
And then offers due by the next week. That way it's efficient, and within the first week we're getting activity on the house, because the last thing that you want is for a house to sit and sit and sit,
Yep.
and then people start to be wary of it. They wonder what's wrong with it. They're least likely to want to go see it because they feel like it's not as appealing.
Sure.
Right. So that's important.
And with the open house, you're the one hosting it?
Most of the time, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We can have another agent within our office show it.
Sure.
But we need to have someone licensed in there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then that's usually for the open house. And then for individual showings, sometimes our office doesn't really like doing lock boxes because we like to have our agents there and present,
Sure.
and be able to, present the house in the best way. But I've only had, like, in 5 years in the business, I've only had one house that I've had on two houses that I've had on lockbox. One was the one in Williamstown that I told you about, just because it was so far away. And then the second one in Springfield, the one that I have right now, because again, it's far away, it's 2 hours away.
And lockbox just means that you'll give them the code and then they can access it whenever they want?
The agent, I'll give the agent the code.
Okay, sure.
We can't give codes out to non-licensed agents.
Sure. Okay.
So that's what I do with that. I was going to bring something up, but maybe it'll come back to me. So,
Sure.
so we
We
put
were
on
talking about
MLS, we
that.
have the open house,
Yeah.
and then after we get offers in, I'll either have a phone or in-person conversation with the seller, and then we'll go over the offers. We won't, and a lot of people think that the price is the most important thing, but it really varies. You're not just looking at price, you're looking at closing time, you're looking at contingencies, right? Because there may be a situation where the seller doesn't have the funds to make certain repairs. So an offer without an inspection contingency may be more favorable to one with, because if you know that there's issues, there's going to be something that comes up in the home inspection, and then the buyers are going to be asking you to fix things. Right. So we'll sit down and we'll review the offers and we'll pick together. The seller will pick the one that they want, but I'll advise them on what I think, based on their situation, would be the best choice.
Sure.
Again, that's why you want to hire a real estate agent, because we're familiar with these things.
Sure.
We see these things all the time, and then we know like what works and what doesn't. So we'll pick an offer, and then it's pretty much smooth sailing from there. You have to, in Massachusetts and Rhode Island as well, you have to get what's called a smoke inspection.
Okay.
So you have to have smoke detectors within certain amount of feet of bedrooms and stairways and stuff like that, and correct placements. Sometimes I'll help my client out with that and do it, but most of the time I recommend a smoke detector company to do that. It's usually about like $125 to $150, right? Based on who it is.
Sure.
And then they'll come and they'll come out. They'll put the detectors where they need to be. They'll put the right kind, because the fire department is specific about what kind they want, right? They want both smoke and carbon. They want, so I've heard that they want it to talk in some places, like fire, carbon monoxide, that type of thing. So with so many requirements and stuff like that, it's best to just hire the professional, just like the photographer, right? And you're not gonna, if I'm your real estate agent, you're not gonna hire me to do your loan, right? That type of thing. So we have them come out. They'll schedule the smoke inspection for the fire department to come out. That's like $50 in New Bedford for that thing. And then once we have that smoke inspection in hand, we kind of just wait for the closing, and then we close. An attorney is another important aspect to the deal.
Okay.
As well. Sellers don't always have attorneys, and they don't always need it. Sometimes they just need a deed drafted by a closing attorney, which is usually like on the buyer side.
Okay.
But sometimes they also want representation, especially if they're dealing with like probate issues and stuff like that. Like I had another one. We'll talk about that more about that later. But I had another one where, they inherited the property and they had their own estate attorney dealing with the legal paperwork, because there was a trust involved, and then they basically used the buyer's attorney to close it.
Sure. Okay.
So yeah. I think that pretty much covers the whole process of selling.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so before we get into investing, I just had kind of a personal question.
Sure.
And so I've heard of companies buying property and then either using it for Airbnbs or selling it themselves. Okay. Do you come across a lot of companies trying to buy different properties, or is it usually just personal people, that.
I've heard about that too, like the iBuyers and
Sure.
the people that are like the Black Rocks and the companies
Exactly,
that
yes.
complain about buying single family homes.
Yes.
I haven't seen it a lot.
Okay.
But I could be biased towards that because I deal with primarily buyers.
Sure.
That's a big bulk of my business.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen it as much, and the agents in my office that are listing a lot of properties, they don't really. At least I don't hear that they're getting a lot of those people in here.
Okay.
And it could just be that this area. What I've heard a lot though is like when they list multis, it's the people from Brockton and Boston coming down here buying them a lot because their houses over there are like $1 million plus.
Yeah.
They come over here and see like $500,000-$600,000. They're
Yeah.
like, oh wow, that's a deal.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
come down here, oh, let me get that. You know what I mean? So that's primarily like what I'm seeing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up, and I'm glad you knew what I was talking about.
Of course.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, okay. And I'm glad it's not so much happening in this area, or at least maybe you just haven't heard of it, but I'm glad it's not as big of a deal, and maybe it's just an online situation in different places.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say too, real quick,
Please,
sorry,
yeah.
is everybody knows that the train is coming. Last
yeah.
meeting that I went to, they were saying that it was going to be in May opening. I'm not sure if they've had any updates since then.
Yeah.
It was like last year sometime that I went to the meeting.
Yeah.
I'm saying all that to say is like, now is the time. If you want to stay in New Bedford, part of my value proposition is I help people, that are from New Bedford stay in New Bedford.
Yeah.
Because at some point it's going to be too expensive to afford, right? So now is the time to really get serious. If you've been on the fence or if you've been putting off the process of getting ready, it's time to really start making those steps before it becomes too expensive because our area is the cheapest area to buy on the east side of Massachusetts. If you want to go cheaper from here, you have to start going west.
Wow.
And a lot of people's, their family isn't from there. They're
Yeah,
from over here.
exactly.
They want to stay with their family.
Yeah.
So if you plan on buying some days, it's time to really get serious because pretty soon it's going to be too expensive to afford. You think it's expensive now?
Yeah.
There's new apartments being built in downtown New Bedford, as you've probably seen.
Yeah.
Right?
Luxury
apartments, right? They want like $2,000, $2,200.
Wow.
For like one bedroom apartments.
Yeah. And so they're clearly not advertising to us, but to probably the people in Boston who are willing to come down.
Right.
And that's going to be cheaper than what they have.
Right. Exactly. So you really got to get serious about your personal finances and really prioritize that. Money isn't everything, but it takes money for this world to go around, and you have to get your stuff together.
And money not be everything, but a home can be everything. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Where you live, where your life is going to be should be the most important thing. Yeah.
Right, and the equity that you gain from the property could be used to change your family's trajectory.
Sure.
Right. If you don't have the money in your bank account to pay for your kids' college, but you built up equity in your house, you can do a home equity line of credit versus a student loan. Right. There's so many different ways to use real estate, and that's why I love it so much.
Okay, so can we use that to pivot into investing and how you can talk about refinancing? Okay, that's something that I know very little about, but I've heard my brother, who you've helped buy his house, talk about that and the possibilities of refinancing in order to get that equity. Okay, so I guess just help us with defining financing and refinancing.
Right. So there's for financing is just using the bank's money to buy your property.
Okay.
Right? Refinancing is when there's two reasons why people want to refinance. One, they want to lower their interest rate and lower their payment. Right. So if they buy and the current interest rate is like 7%, but they see that it's gone down to like 6.2, they may want to refi because that'll lower their monthly payment.
Sure.
And it'll be easier to make those payments. Right?
Okay.
The other reason why they want to refi is because they want to get money out.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Through either a home equity line of credit, which is kind of like a credit card where you pay on what you use, right? Or they want to do a home equity loan where they're just getting another lump sum loan on top of their mortgage payment, right? To go towards whatever you want to put it towards. I usually don't recommend doing that type of thing unless you have a way to invest in something else. Like if you wanted to do a home equity line of credit on your home and then go buy an investment property that's going to pay that back,
sure,
yes,
exactly.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if you want to take out a home equity line of credit so you can go buy a new car,
Yeah.
or buy something that like a liability that's going to take all your money away. Because now you have your mortgage payment, and then you have that new payment on that home equity loan or line of credit.
Yeah.
So who's going to pay that?
Yeah, you have nothing making money for you.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So hopefully that answered your question.
No, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so now talking about investing, what is the smartest thing to invest in? Like how does someone get started in investing in real estate, and what does that look like?
So to get started investing in real estate, first you have to have a business plan. It's like starting any other business, right? Real estate, when you're not buying something for you to live in, real estate is a business, right? So you want to have a plan as to what you're going to do, right? And you have to determine, do I want to be, because there's multiple different ways to get into real estate. You can be a sales agent like myself. You can be a flipper, right? Where you buy a house that needs a lot of work, you fix it up, and then you sell it for more than what you bought it for and what you're into the renovations for.
Yeah.
So you could do that, or you can be a buy and hold investor, where you buy a property that you can rent out, and then the rent that you bring in covers the mortgage payments and then some.
Yes, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So there's that business, right? So there's different ways you can get into it. You can do a combination of all of them. Like that's my goal. I want to do all of that.
Okay,
right?
wow.
And I'm actually looking for an investment property right now.
Okay.
So you have to, first thing is you have to determine what you want to do,
Yep.
right? And then again, you have to get your personal finances in order, just like you're going to go buy something for you to live in. Because although a lot of people will use an entity like an LLC or something like that to buy a property, a lot of times lenders are also going to look at you personally, who they're lending money to. Is this a responsible person that's going to pay us back? So they're going to put like a personal guarantee on that. So they want to know that you can pay that money back. So you need to get your personal credit in order, make sure you have savings, right? There are ways that you can get into investing in property with no money, but you're going to need some sort of money, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Even
of
with
course.
those aspects, like wholesaling, where you sell contracts and stuff like that, you still need money for marketing and stuff like that. So regardless, you need to have finances. That's very important in any aspect of real estate, is have your finances together.
Sure.
If you're not at the point where it's together, then you shouldn't even be thinking about that. The main focus should be getting your finances together. Then once you're in a comfortable position, now we can start looking at investing in real estate or buying a home.
And so when getting your finances together, is the most important thing your credit, or is it something else?
It's all equally important.
Okay, sure.
It's all equally important, unless you have enough money to buy the property outright cash, which a lot of people don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So it's very important to get your credit together.
Yeah.
Because the lenders, they have a sliding scale, of how they categorize credit, right? There's excellent, great, poor, fair. Like there's a scale, right?
Sure.
And based on that scale is how they're going to determine how much they're going to give you, at what interest rate they're going to give it to you, or whether or not they're going to give it to you at all, right? Like if you the minimum credit score for FHA is 580. If you have a 579, they're just going to say, sorry, we can't give it to you, right?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because they don't see you as someone that would have the capacity to pay them back, right? So the credit is very important.
Sure.
Very, very important.
Okay.
So.
Sorry, have you seen the movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey?
I've heard of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's does that as far as for saying yes or no on people's credit and if they are able to buy different purchases. And I definitely recommend that, because in the beginning of the movie he's just saying no, and then at some point he's saying yes, and he just rises up because, I don't know, I guess they're able to make the payments or whatever, and it just ends up being successful. But
that's great.
Yeah, that was just a sidebar.
I'm gonna definitely check that out for sure.
Yeah, definitely interesting.
But okay, so I'm gonna break it down. So let's say you want to flip, right?
Sure.
And I actually just made a video on this. So let's say you want to flip, and you have your personal finances together. You got some money saved, right? If you want to flip and you have enough money to buy the property outright, you can just go to an auction, or you can go online on MLS. Sometimes there's flips available on MLS too. You can go through your agent to get to that. But you're gonna go and you're gonna buy the property outright. If you need financing, then you're going to have to go to a specific type of lender called a hard money lender.
Sure.
And what those are is those are companies that are more focused on the property itself and how much income you can bring in from that versus your credit and stuff like that. Yeah, like your personal credit, right? And it's the reason why it's called a hard money lender is because the terms are harder on you than a regular bank. Right now, rates are around 6 or 7%, right? A hard money lender is going to be like 9 to 14.
Wow. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So it varies. The reason why the interest rates are so high is because they're shorter term loans. Right?
Okay.
To buy a regular house, you're gonna have like a 15 to 30 year mortgage. On the hard money, it's like anywhere from like 6 to 24 months. Right. Loan term.
Wow.
Right?
Okay. Really
so
short term.
It's designed for you to take that money, use the money that they give you for renovations, fix it up, and sell it, or refinance out of it so that they can get their money back.
Yeah.
Right?
They want their money back quick.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the type of loan that you would need to get to be able to flip, because a regular like 15, 30-year mortgage is not. They're not going to accept the property in that condition. It needs to be in livable condition for them to finance it.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So that covers flipping.
So, not to cut you off,
No,
but
sure, no
we
problem.
are running out of time. And
Okay.
so I do just want to ask you, what has been maybe your favorite memory so far of being a real estate agent? You did bring up, helping out a woman, and it sounded like you talked to her to a point where you understood that some of the things that she wanted to do, as far as have those barbecues or be with her family. Is there one specific story that stands out to you?
I don't know if I would say this is my favorite memory, because that one that you just mentioned is my favorite one.
Okay, cool.
Like, I've had bigger deals, but like that one like really hit home because of the situation and how happy she was to be able to hold the keys and the sign in her hand. But I have another story from is a veteran story. Actually. I met him through a mutual friend. He had been living in his parents' house with his wife and their baby, their daughter. Actually, I think she may have been a little bit old, like probably like three or four at the time. They obviously that's an uncomfortable situation when you have your own family and then you're living in your parents' house, right?
Yeah.
So he had a very specific budget, but because of the VA program, when you don't have down payment, that was an advantageous VA program for VA program also has most favorable interest rates out of most loans. So that's something to keep in mind. So we had a very specific budget, and it took a little bit of time to find exactly what he wanted, because he had specifics about his criteria and the price range that he was trying to stay in. But we eventually found something down in Coventry, Rhode Island, and it had like everything that he wanted. It was the house type that he wanted. It was a dated house, so that he had the opportunity to go in there, do some work, build some sweat equity into it. One of the biggest things for him is that he wanted the land. This one had almost an acre of land.
Oh,
so
wow.
Right now, I see videos of him with his daughter on the 4-wheeler and a go-kart, just driving around with the dog and stuff like that. And he actually, what makes this so sweet is that like, as soon as they moved in there, his wife got pregnant again, and then they had twins.
Wow.
So imagine if they would have had twins
in the basement.
Or I don't know if they're in the basement, but in the parents' house. Right. Imagine if they would have had that, how uncomfortable that would have been. But just at the nick of time, they found something that they needed, and they were able to expand their family, and now they're very happy. They have barbecues. I went there for the baby shower and everything. I've been there since the babies have been born. So it's just like it's the personal connection that I build with my clients
special,
that
man.
makes this job special. You know? So I love that story.
Yeah, I'm like cheering up a little bit. But so this has been Wake Up New Bedford. This has been part 2 with Brandan Burke, the real estate agent with Amaral and Associates Real Estate, and it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Man. Appreciate it.
Catch us on the next episode. Thank everyone for watching and supporting, and have a good night. Peace.